This technique is going to walk you through cutting up your portraits and piecing them back together. There's a lot of different directions you can take this, but these are the two examples that I will put together and show you in the video below. This one on the right is cutting up the spacing in between and then putting different layers on top of each other, and the one on the left is cutting up actual triangles and piecing them back together. So watch the video and see how these techniques are done, and then afterwards maybe consider changing it up or making it your own. So here's a few different ways that cutting up portraits could go. So instead of lots of little shapes, maybe you cut up a big chunk of your one portrait, put it on top of the other one, and then stitch it together with the yarn technique, so that way you can incorporate that one as well. Or maybe you're using different colors or values and cutting out different squares and overlapping them like this one on the left. These are both kind of similar to the video where you're cutting out different shapes and playing around with the placement of them. But what's creative about some of these or different is, first of all, the one on the right has different shapes. So there's squares that are kind of scattered about. And not only are they squares, but there's some different lines and horizontal spaces as well that are interesting in the way that they're placed and how they're put together to show just the top part of the face kind of coming apart. And then these also have similar shapes, but the background is something that was different or created too. So consider maybe incorporating color that way. So maybe you paint the background and then you piece these back together on a different background. Think about how you're going to put two portraits into one. So are you going to just cut out one and overlay it on top of the other? Are they going to kind of mix or blend together somehow? Or are they going to still be two completely separate portraits that are cut out and they're diptychs that you can show together as the two separate finalized pieces? Here's a few more ideas. So this one is similar to in the video how you're cutting out the spacing in between. But just the way they're put back together and photographed is creative. So maybe consider using just a photo of some sort of landscape or something that you can put in the background, and then maybe you use Photoshop and incorporate a Photoshop technique in the way that you're putting these back together. And this one on the left is creative because of how it is woven. Instead of cutting, it looks like they were more torn or ripped sections. And this is a great way to incorporate both of your pieces into one portrait. So maybe you can actually weave them together. And then this one on the left is very intricate, has a lot of layers and a lot to it. But this could be interesting too. Maybe instead of actually physically cutting up your drawing that you did, you could scan it or take a picture of it. I can print it for you maybe 5 or 6 times, and then that way you can build your layers instead of just having the two portraits to put together. You could do something like this on the left that has multiple dimensions and layers to it. So be creative, think outside the box with how you're cutting these up and putting them together. This one, I like the consistency of the shapes, how they're all different. And it looks like it's almost shattered or broken glass. And same kind of idea, it looks like there's multiple layers here too. So maybe you have a bottom layer that's printed that you don't touch or cut out. Print a second picture out. This one you cut into larger shapes. A third layer you cut into even smaller shapes. So consider some of those different directions. Watch the video below to see putting together and cutting out your shapes using the X-Acto.